Welcome back to 8 Cubes, the show where we, myself and Lamby series, talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap. And there is a big one at the front. This is Khonshu. Khonshu is a 6'5 at base. What do I mean by base? Well, he scales. Every time you discard him, he will get a little bit stronger. From 6'5, if you discard him once, he will become a 6'8. From 6'8, if you discard him twice, he'll become a 6'12. I don't actually know what happens after you discard him if he is a 6'12. He could stay at 6'12. He could go back to 6'5. He could discard himself and just be gone. It's not entirely clear. But what is clear is that when he is played, he revives something you discarded and sets its power to what is effectively the number that is on him. So if you play him after having discarded him one time, he will be a 6'8 that revives it at 8. If you play him after having discarded him twice, he'll be a 6'12 that revives the card at 12. And if you play him after having not discarded anything, he'll be a 6'5 that revives the card at 5. This is a fascinating card. Lamby, when you see this, where does your mind go?
All right, so just talk about the baseline, right? If you didn't ever discard this card, it's 6'5, and then you revive a thing, and then it's a 5 at somewhere else. So at base power, it's like 6'10 of sorts, right? But obviously, we're never gonna like really want to do that only. This card makes me very excited simply because if you discard it twice and then you play it on final turn, right? It's like 6'12 and then another 12 on another location. I don't really care what I discard now that I think about it because you turn anything into a 12 power on another location. So you play a 6-12 and then a 12 spawns somewhere else. And obviously, if that card you respawn has like an additional effect, like it could really be anything, right? It's gonna benefit from having an additional 12 power. So I think this card might revive that whole like apocalypse style discard whereby you just do pretty much nothing, just set up, and then play the Modok on 5, dump everything, and then this card just is your bomb on turn 6. It's like the better apocalypse sort of. I do think this is in general gonna be better apocalypse. But one thing you pointed out, which is hilarious, also is I think you're right. Like if you discard this, because the text literally on the 612 version says it doesn't say the return in its final phase thing. There's like no further phase after the 12, So that's what makes it even more of like an Modok discard card because you just want one big or two big discards and that's it. You don't want to like progressively discard like the current versions of this card right now. So this card probably might revive that old style of this card, which I think is just simple, good, and based on what I'm seeing here, also seems to be very uninteractable, which makes it very difficult for your opponent to deal with. And I think it might shift the meta a bit if it's actually a successful deck, because if it's uninteractable 624 on two separate locations on the final turn, it's kind of like what can you do, man? You have no way of stopping. This is very Hela-esque of sorts, but I guess might be even more controlled and less random, which is scary.
Yeah, it's interesting because the first place my brain went with this was how do I revive Gore? Like, how do I use topic number 8, the first Ghost Rider, to just put a Gore package into whatever deck? How do I do that, right? And that's where my head has been at. But then you mentioned normal discard, which I just hadn't even really considered as a home for this guy, because it's like, we don't have Apocalypse discard in the metagame anymore because everyone is doing Bullseye stuff and Dakin stuff, which is much harder for your opponent to meaningfully interact with and hit similar levels of point threshold. So what is the upside towards being like a deck like this that's going back to that old no Bullseye, or maybe you still play Bullseye, but you're definitely not doing the Dakin stuff if you're playing this, because that requires like Grandmaster as well, and you're going to want to use that slot on something like this. What exactly is the draw between playing something like this and going all in on, I'm going to get a 624 on the final turn of the game, compared to the like extreme highs of Bullseye? Because it does feel like if you play Konshu in this deck and you draw Konshu, it's going to be a much more consistent output. But the extreme highs of Bullseye, like with all of the stuff that you're doing, the Dakin Frigga stuff that would probably have to go to play this card, are we doing that?
I mean, this deck, I think fits. It's a very interesting deck because I don't strictly think that this like potentially new Konshu deck will be better. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that it incentivizes like the kind of people that snap very early, because you remember how Shuri Nimrod used to be like, you just like snap and then you hope you draw the final piece, because if you do, it's 8 cubes, and then they don't even know if you draw it, so they don't know if they can stay for 8 cubes. This one feels like if you see one of the pieces, you see the Khonshu or the Modok in your hand, you're just like, okay, snap. Then they're just like, but their deck doesn't have the win conditions here, I guess I'll stay. Then if they hit at the end, you lose 8, because like it's one of those decks by when you hit, you just output so much points on the final turn. And you're allowed to kind of snap early because you have time to draw through your deck. And if you hit like A plus B, you just win, So I feel like this deck incentivizes like early snapping. I know it's not like specifically about like how much points you put or whatever, but like just the style of the deck. The style of this deck just feels like if you draw the 2 pieces, you just are able to like win regardless of like what your opponent does. So of course this subject to the fact that like if the meta has a deck that puts way more points on the board, then you can't snap this early. But when Shuri Nimrod, I remember when it was a thing, the max point output was like what 20 plus on each.
You're showing your age here.
Like yeah, I'm showing my age. But like Shuri Nimrod double pop was like 26 or something. And if you knew you beat your opponent's deck with 26, you just stay and then they die if they stay back. So
yeah,
this is that kind of deck.
The other thing I like about this card right now, conceptually, is that it's solid at counterplaying like Juggernaut priority strategies.
Yes.
But by the same token, it's not good at all into Shang-Chi lose priority. And those are often like the same decks that are able to play the same way, right? Like part of what makes Apocalypse, whenever it is relevant, be a relevant method of playing discard, even though it has been eclipsed by the Dakin stuff and the general bullseye things, is that you are able to dodge Shang-Chi because of Dracula, right? And this is explicitly like very often not going to be able to do that. So if I ask you to like stack rank the like current bullseye Dakin version of discard, the Apocalypse version of discard, and a hypothetical Konshu version of discard, what order do you expect them to be in?
I think the hypothetical Konshu one will definitely be above the Apocalypse one. That's my current opinion. But I cannot say for sure that it will be better than the Bullseye one, because yes, like this Khonshu one kind of like allows you to snap early, and like people don't like to leave, so this kind of deck lets you snap early and stay, which is, it makes people happy that they can do that and maybe still win. But I think in terms of consistency, just theoretically, I think the Bullseye one is just overall definitely more consistent. So based just on theory, I think I'll still rank the Bullseye one higher, because we've seen that deck. We don't know how the Khonshu one is gonna fare.
I also kind of wonder about Konshu going in like the Moon Knight shell. Like that would be a really exciting thing if it actually worked, putting Konshu in that deck. The worry I have is basically like day one, it's just going to be a bunch of people playing Konshu Moon Knight and discarding each other's Konshus and feeling really stupid about every decision they've made. A lot of week one syndrome with this guy for sure.
Yeah, I think in general, these kind of like, if you play mirror matches, it'll just be weird kind of cards. You can't really judge it just based on the first day or two, just like let it play out a bit.
Moving on to Firehair, who just released, and I think we basically nailed this one. Like, I think I was basically 100% bang on about this. The card is cool, the card is interesting, it is strong with the hood, it does nice things with hood and misery, the Thor stuff is like moderately playable. But ultimately, it just doesn't really measure up to like what people are doing right now. And not even like the general power level of other things, but the general consistency level of other things. People talk about power creep a lot. But what I think is really unique about cards like Sam Wilson and Iron Patriot that are like so often referred to as power creep is that they're not necessarily more powerful than everything else. They're also just very consistent. Even if you don't win the Iron Patriot lane, he is putting a card in your hand, you might play that card. Even if you don't draw Sam Wilson, there is a thing on the board from Sam Wilson. The consistency level is very high, whereas Firehair struck me as a relatively inconsistent card that had relatively inconsistent payoff. And despite the fact that you can do probably more cool things with her than like any Marvel Snap card I've ever seen, she just ended up a little bit low on power level, and I'm not sure what they could have done to fix that.
Yeah, no, your last statement is literally what I wanted to say as well, which is basically this card just screams cool. It's just very cool to play this card, but that's just it, right? Like most of the I talk about this a lot every single time, which is like there's a lot of cards that like do things, but at the same time, it's like you could be doing the same thing more efficiently with another strategy, So I think this card just like misses because there's so many things that like can just do what it does. I mean, not exactly what it does, but like it can do. There are other decks or engines in the game that do better things than what this does. Even though this one probably does it in a very more interesting way. And there's like so many ways to use Firehair. You cannot deny that there's really so
Yes.
many use cases for Firehair, right? The simple hood stuff. There's like Thanos stuff you can do, misery, whatever. Like there's so many things you can do with this card, but like at the end of the day, the decks that do those things don't need this card. But it's a fun card. Like
Yes.
you want to enjoy the game, you probably just buy it and then you see cool stuff happen, but it's very unnecessary. Oh, but I do want to say that despite this card being very unnecessary, we also mentioned in the previous video, right, that like alongside the staple 2 drops right now, like the Sams and the Iron Patriots, like if you want to do cool things, this is a very easy 2 cost card to fit into your deck, like just to curve out.
Yeah, I mean, it does have like a sort of associated cost to it, though, which is like every deck that plays Firehair also plays Misery, and if you don't own Misery, she's probably not doing much of the cool stuff. But like, there is so much to be said for like the way in which this card lets you do things that are weird and offbeat, and this feels like the kind of card that like someone can very easily fall in love with. I kind of wrote this card off as like they just made the Grandmaster again. But I will say this card is 500 times more fun, more unique, and more interesting than the Grandmaster could ever dream of being. This is like if the Grandmaster was awesome, cool, and genuinely kind of decent. Like they have gotten so much better at making the Grandmaster.
Regarding to Grandmaster kind of only fits in like 1 or 2 places right now. This one can kind of go in a lot of decks, right? Like any deck that runs Misery, like you said, can play this as well. Not saying that it's gonna be a necessary inclusion, but it's at least easier to include in decks than the Grandmaster.
Yeah, like I don't want to sit up here and tell you that Firehair is a good purchase if you care about your win rate, because I don't think she is. But she is. This is one of the first times I've ever actually looked at a card and said, you know what? This is genuinely interesting beyond its win rate. It just lets me do things that no other card in the game will let me do. And I think that is a rare reaction for me, and it's worth noting.
Yeah, and also the one thing about Firehair is like this kind of card, right? Because it's so open-ended, like you can do so many things with this kind of card, right? They just need to release one Omega Bastard interaction that can work with Firehair. They just need to make that mistake.
Everyone says that about every card like this, but it's true of every card. No,
Because it's already so easy to fit in decks, right? Like I know people say this about Grandmaster, but Grandmaster was never easy to fit into decks. This one you can fit into the deck just because already, So they just need to print something that's overpowered that works with this, and then you get a new deck. I'm quite
every card is one overpowered interaction away from being busted.
This one is exceptionally close to being busted, I'm quite sure.
Let's talk about Juggernaut, who is kind of, I don't know if he's like the boogeyman of this meta, but I think if you talk to high-level players, you'll get a lot of, that guy as like a conversation topic, where it's just like, he comes up a lot, where it's like, I don't expect him to have like a particularly good win rate or anything like that, but he is so often the finisher of these like, what I like to call season pass decks, and he's been in that role for forever, even since before those decks were season pass decks, since they were like silky smooth or whatever. Like before, way back in the day, it was always like good shell of cards, Shang-Chi, Juggernaut, and we're somehow back here again.
Yeah, so this card is, like you said, right? It's been a top player's like in the top players' arsenal for a very long time, really, like for years, by the way, because firstly, the card has been around for years, and secondly, it's also like once you gain initiative, right, what you want to do is to close out the game is like you don't want people to be able to add more power to the locations that you've kind of already won. So you play the Juggernaut there and you like secure the location, right? So like you said, it's very mid-range decks, they have like this fixed point output, like there's this like range of points that they can do, and then when they play against like a deck that cannot beat in terms of points, right, they just don't care, they just move everything away so that they don't need to put way more points there, and the thing that mid-range decks are very good at doing is that they are very, very good at gaining initiative, right? It's just like playing cards, so you kind of always have a way to use Juggernaut to its like best ability in a mid-range deck. So I feel like And also when I say best players like always have this in their arsenals, because like good players know how to like position their cards in the right position so that they know that like they will have initiative for sure going into turn 6 or whatever. So yeah, it's just that card, right? That I don't think it will ever really fully become like useless, you know. Like there can be a meta whereby maybe it's a bit less useful, but like in a good player's hands, I feel like there will always be a way for Juggernaut to like steal games.
I do think that it's also worth talking about the way in which people are counterplaying Juggernaut right now. And I think that there's a bunch of different good examples for this, but we're going to talk about Sandman in topic 7. And a lot of why the Sandman deck is good is that it inherently counterplays Juggernaut, with many of the builds running Captain Marvel and all of the builds running Doctor Doom. And so, like, this is a deck that punishes people for relying on Juggernaut when so many people are doing exactly that. And taking that tool out of their arsenal, just the threat of it, it makes the decks a lot less able to, like, guarantee wins. Because Juggernaut isn't just a lane winner. Like, that's the really important thing about Juggernaut, right? Juggernaut is a lane winner, but it is also a card that you can use to protect your stuff from Shang-Chi. And so, like, that's the thing that it allows it to do. If you remove one of those interactions, right? Like, you just have to remove one of them. So being a deck that takes priority and a deck that can counterplay Juggernaut as a lane winner is removing both of them. Removing even one of them is enough. But removing both of them is very important. So there's other ways to counterplay Juggernaut. Captain Marvel's probably the most common. Doctor Doom, we talked about how Khonshu could do it. But even Discard sort of naturally counterplays Juggernaut because its stats are already on the board. They're just waiting to be realized. Mobius is actually 20 power. As soon as those cards get discarded, it's already there. You can't Juggernaut that 20 power out of there. It's already on the board. The same goes for things like Dakin. So focusing on counterplaying Juggernaut and how to do that is actually something that I think is very important right now.
Yeah, and I think also on a personal note, one reason why I like really like Juggernaut, I didn't really used to, but then I realized that I should be liking this card based on like playstyle as well, is because Juggernaut rewards you for playing cards. It's the same reason why I don't like Sarah as much, because Sarah kind of rewards you for not playing cards. And I mean, I'm playing a card game, I want to play my cards every turn, right? So Juggernaut kind of rewards you for doing that, while Sarah kind of just like, if you've ever played Sarah, you know, it's just like you're just holding and waiting and hoping that they play like the stuff that you can counter, but you really have to be like not on priority, which is effectively our next topic.
Yeah, great segue. We're going to talk about the dynamics of priority in the current metagame, because I think we're in a metagame that really, really heavily emphasizes it. There are a bunch of different priority things that matter a ton right now. Juggernaut just one, Shang-Chi likely the other one that gets talked about a lot. But when we talk about priority, how do you get priority? You get priority by being ahead, by winning, by snowballing. And by that metric, I think there are other really important priority interactions in the game. Early priority for Rocket and Groot, winning Iron Patriot lanes off of stuff like that. Like, and what you need, whether or not you need priority or need to throw priority based on your hand, your opponent's board, things of that nature. All of that stuff, I feel like it has never been more important to manage priority than it is right this second.
Yeah, honestly, just off the top of my head, and I think it's pretty clear. So, like, it's more rewarding now in general to have initiative, or like in the early game, like you like win Iron Patriot lanes, right? I mean, like Cosmos not that popular right now, but also setting up Cosmos, Juggernauts, and like just being able to like flip your cards first and get off your Agamotto spam or whatever, you know, like all these kind of little things rewards having initiative right now as well. I feel like the one of the only things that really matters to not be on like priority / initiative is you don't want to get Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Right. I think that I don't even think that's a now thing. I think that's been a thing for the entire time to not lose to Shang, right? So I feel like every time, I think the most common use case or the idea is that like every time you need to not lose to Shang, try not to gain initiative. But in general, I feel like initiative / priority is something that is more important now than ever, because the early game, I wouldn't say scalers, but like your Patriots and all that kind of stuff, they kind of just obviously benefit from you being winning, which is more stats and initiative in general.
Yeah, like there is probably a greater emphasis on being ahead, converting into winning, since any metagame I can think of since Alioth. And I think there's another dynamic that's a really important part of this, which is, despite the fact that Shang-Chi is everywhere and has a lot of targets, a lot of decks are really good right now at dodging Shang-Chi regardless of priority. Like, whether that be, like, how is an Agamotto deck hitting 10s, right? It's going to be through a combination of Galacta and Gwenpool buffs or just playing Agamotto. And they can dodge those happening. Like, they control the cards they play. If they want to dodge Shang-Chi and just not play out any cards that have 10 power, they can do that prior or no.
Agamotto,
yeah.
Just not play out the Agamotto, right? Because, like, sorry to interrupt there, but, like, Galacta is, like, 4-6. Gwenpool rarely buffs things above 10 other than the Agamotto.
Unless when you, like, images of Icon. Like, that's the other... that's like, that'll happen, right? Like, you'll be vulnerable to Shang-Chi there.
I'm sorry. Galacta in particular puts stuff in a range whereby it's so big, but it's not big enough to Shang, you know?
Yep. That's her secret power.
That's what I notice very often.
That's her secret power, is like the best possible stat line you can put for one space of a Marvel Snapboard is 9. Like, that's just, it's just as good as it gets. You don't go into Shang-Chi range. You get the most value per space, getting as close to 9 as you can. Speaking of cards that are incredibly large but don't look or are not Shang-Chi-able to the degree that they are large, Scream, I think, has become a massively overlooked card in a sea of people complaining about Iron Patriot and maybe Sam Wilson, mostly Iron Patriot, ubiquity-wise. Scream is, I think, very, very, very arguably, like, I would lean towards saying that she is the strongest 2-drop in the game.
Well,
you think so?
Why?
What do you mean, why?
I mean, I think she's... Okay, I know she's big. I know she gets very big very easily, and there are so many cards that make her work, and her deck is strong. But, like, strongest in terms of just power or overall utility? Because I would rank Iron Patriot higher, personally.
I don't think I could say she's stronger in terms of utility, because she's not nearly as splashable. And because her deck is an Iron Patriot Sam deck, too. Like, it's obviously playing those things. But her deck only exists because of her. She is the Surtur of her archetype. It does not happen if she does not exist. And right now, it is one of the highest performing decks at top 10% Infinite consistently. Like, if you go look at Untapped right now, there are like 4 different builds of Scream in like the top 5. Like, it is an absolute monstrosity. And again, some of that is down to Iron Patriot and Sam. But that is down to Iron Patriot and Sam because what they've done is they've given the deck more good 2-drops. Any good 2-drop would be doing that for Scream. It's just that those are the 2 that are actually good. It finally has cards that are like, I don't know, 80% as good as she is, and now it's winning a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can semi-agree with you there because, like, her deck performing well at the top it makes sense to me, right? Because what is effectively a Scream deck? It's like mid-range stuff, but also there is a lot of movement involved, you know, in a Scream deck. And movement usually means you have a lot of player agency, right? And when you have a lot of player agency, it means that, like, you're in control a lot. And when you're in control a lot, when you're good, you're in control, you probably win games. So I think being able to be in control of a lot of your decisions with, like, the movement stuff, and then you have natural scalers because you move stuff like Scream, you know, I think kind of just makes sense why her deck's at the top. I think her win rate definitely will fall off in the, like, the lower ranks where, like, you don't really think too much about maybe, like, where exact placements or where you need to move stuff, where your opponent's gonna play stuff, so you need to move them, that kind of thing. Like, and preemptively moving or whatsoever. I think all these things fall off a little bit in the lower ranks or, like, for less experienced players, but definitely in the higher ranks, having control of, like, where exactly you can, like, put things and, like, the adaptability of how you can, like, sometimes shift stuff here and there, I think it's gonna be good players. Like, it's just something in their arsenal that they definitely want to have, you know, the agency to control.
I will also say this, Scream sort of naturally counterplays a lot of popular tech cards right now. Like, we don't have anything that gets to 10 to be Shang-Chi'd. We only have Iron Patriot as a Mobius target, and Juggernaut is actually notably not good because you don't know where your stuff is going to be on the final turn of the game.
This is just power crap Silky's move, right? Straight up.
I don't think it's like that. Like, I think it feels meaningfully different than Power Crept Silky Smooth, which was a much lower curve deck, where, like, Silky Smooth was very much like 2s and 3s and then a Shang-Chi, and that's what the deck was mostly about. Like, it was about your 2s, it was about your 3s, it was about one Shang-Chi maybe, right? This is a deck that is a little bit more genuinely beefy. There are 4s in it that matter. There are 5s in it that matter. Multiple 5s. Like, it's not so much Power Crept Silky Smooth. I don't even know that there is something like Silky Smooth, but to me, that deck was so defined by, like, Kitty Pryde stuff. playing a lot of cards per turn. Whereas Scream is basically only ever going to play 2 cards per turn. Basically never going to play more than that.
I'm leaning more towards the idea of like it being mid-range, but a lot of points, but also uncounterable by tech. You know, that's why I meant like Power Card, Silky Smooth. Because Silky Smooth was just that deck that like you could always play cards you never really bricked, and then you don't lose to tech.
Yeah.
I think this is similar.
It is similar in that aspect. There's also a lot less loot cage running around. Just a lot less. I have a hot take for you, Lamby. This is my hot take, and it's gonna get stuff thrown at me. I'm like kind of eyeing my surroundings to look for tomatoes flying towards my face. I think Arishem needs to be buffed.
Okay.
I think Arishem is right now as weak as he's ever been. I think Arishem is a card that people love and find exciting, but here's the actual crux of my argument. Arishem came out last, July? This is July, right? Something like June or July. Since then, I think we can all look at Marvel Snap and say, I think the power of the average playable card and or deck has probably gone up. That's a fairly normal thing to think. Because of that, Arishem has only gotten weaker. There are certain cards that have gone in Arishem, like Galacta, like for a while Doom 2099 before he got nuked twice. There are cards that have made Arishem better. But there are far more cards that have made every other deck better. And as such, Arishem's drawback of generating random cards has gotten more pronounced. Because now every other deck's card quality is so much higher than yours because the average card is so much worse than the average playable card in someone else's deck.
All right, so that was the perfect like final line, right? The average. What was it again? The average playable card. The average card
is so much worse than the average playable card.
Playable card, yes. Correct. And that is because that's super important because Arishem is that one deck that. So the funny thing about Arishem is that like Arishem lets you play cards that are never playable because they just randomly get generated, right? So cards that are never playable feel a lot worse right now because the playable cards, aka season pass cards or new releases, are just infinitely better than the never played cards. In the past, it was less bad, right? Because the gap between the never played cards and the played cards is not that big. But then now the gap is huge because there's still way more unplayed cards than like new averagely played good cards, you know. So I feel like on average, Arishem generates you nonsense compared to the good stuff you hope he generates, you know. And the other good decks, they kind of just play the good cards that are released in the last 6 months, you know. So
I mean, it's not even.
I do get.
I want to push
you
back
mean with the whole Arishem getting buffed thing.
I want to push back on one thing. Because it's not just decks for the playing cards from the last 6 months or whatever. It's not just like a pay to win power creep thing. It's even just like cards that get buffed, right? Like Hela was beating the hell out of Arishem. Like that deck wasn't playing any new cards. That deck didn't care about that at all. It just got Surtur at 7 and it was like, all right, let's go. And then Arishem can't keep up with that. Like Mr. Negative was beating the hell out of Arishem. What is Arishem supposed to do about that?
Yeah, they got gore and stuff like that. So.
Like it's just
wait. So the question now is because I think we started this topic, but then everyone really just wants to know what your buff suggestion is.
I want to make him generate less cards. I want to make your deck building matter more. I don't want to give him back the energy on turn 1 and turn 2 because I think that would suck. I think if he got the energy back, I think that would be like, not even like it would be broken. It just would not feel fun to play against with the power level of stuff that we have access to right now. I don't think it's fine to get like, 3 drop. Like that's where I think it matters the most, actually. Like that's part of why, like, I think it's okay to buff him is because I think the time when your energy matters the most is the early turns. Getting 2 energy on 1 is a 50% boost or 100% boost. Getting 3 energy on 2 is a 50% boost. Once you start getting it on 4, it's a much less relative boost. And so that's why I don't want to give him back the unfair stuff. I want to just take the tax down a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So I guess make him generate less cards in the deck, right? So what's a nice number?
I was thinking 9.
To put into your deck. 9. Okay.
9 or 10 was sort of where my head was at. Just like take the tax down a little bit. See if that allows people to deck build with him. Because I think the thing I really don't like about him is that it's very hard to do anything other than just like jam a million cards in there. Like, what are you going to play Mobius? Are you going to seriously with a straight face play Mobius? I'm trying it right now. And it's like, what? Like, I'm going to draw this when it matters? Come on. Like, I can't do that. Like
Arishem feels like a tester's nightmare, right? Because like because I talked to like a lot of game designer people recently, and then like they always have like stats and like played win rates, drawn win rates, all that kind of stuff. Arishem testing feels like win rate when there are 10 randomly generated cards in there, win rate when there are 9 randomly generated. It's so difficult to do, and then there needs to be sample size as well. I feel like it's so difficult to balance the amount of like cards you should put into an Arishem deck. Have you ever considered like when they thought like, okay, I need to put more cards in Arishem deck? Do they just like roll a dice and like, okay, let's just put 3 more?
I wonder if they're just like in there. They're just in there like throwing darts at a board,
right?
I think
it's so difficult to figure out the golden ratio, and then there's also like meta concerns. Like maybe this meta, it's okay to have more random stuff because it's fine to be less consistent. And that meta, you need to be more consistent in your deck, so you cannot add so much cards to Arishem for it to be playable. Like it's just an impossible card to balance. I feel like in terms of the cards added to deck.
I mean, I think they're in a pretty okay spot with it. Like honestly, they could just like they have so many levers on the card where it's like I think they could just like I honestly think they could vibe check it. Like I'm coming into this with a proposal that they just vibe check it. Like, just be like, yeah, just put it to 9, see what happens. Go for it. Just see if it's good. See if it's good. Go figure it out.
I do feel like Marvel Snap sometimes actually does that. They just never say it, but I feel like they vibe check often. What do you guys think? I think they do this vibe check, like, all right, let's just -1 here and see what happens. And for the Hella one recently, they just like, all right, let's just go -1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's fine.
That works.
I think they do that sometimes.
That works. Like, if you're arguing that they're doing that, all you can say is great job vibe checking.
They did that sometimes. Yeah, should check with Glenn.
You'll notice this topic is the same as last time because it's worth talking about Sandman. That deck is kind of taken off, and I really just appreciate what it's like. It's just nice to have a dumb guy deck in the meta. You know what I mean? There's so many decks that are like, oh, I gotta like plan out my turns. I don't really know what's gonna happen this game. It depends on like the cards I draw. Sandman, like you know what you're doing. The whole deck, you know what you're doing. You're playing your cards. What's up? I'm playing Sam Wilson. I'm playing an Iron Patriot. Your opponent played a Sam Wilson. Your opponent played an Iron Patriot. Nice. I have a Mobius. It's just such a comfy deck. Like you never feel under pressure from anything. Everything is comfortable when you play Sandman. It's just a nice experience.
Yeah, the thing about Sandman, I think I wouldn't talk about so specifically about like the current build of Sandman. I just want to talk about like why Sandman works in general, and it will work the same way even in the future, and how it worked in the past is the same. So I think what Sandman does is firstly it limits options on the final turn, right? So the thing about Sandman is that how you build Sandman decks in the past will be the same how you build it now, and also probably will be the same how you build it in the future, which is you need to see the meta's like average output before turn 5. You kind of need to either keep up into turn 5 or go Bazonka's bomb on turn 6. Like it's either one. Or if you can do both, then probably Sandman will be tier 1. Like if you can keep up and then drop the bomb on turn 6, then that's perfect. Or you can be ahead, then Sandman, then drop the bomb on turn 6. But normally you don't. So I feel like in general, Sandman decks, like in the past, it was just like, oh, Electro, Jeff, lose a little bit in the early game, play the Sandman, then Doom wins, But I guess if you can make a Sandman deck that's like, I play very big mid-range stuff and keep up with what's popular in the meta, and then my 5 is Sandman, my 6 is Doom, then yeah, I guess you can, that's how you win, right? Because you isolate the final turn to like 1 card. So you're either keeping up or being slightly ahead in the early game, or you have like an insane power burst in the like turn 6. That's I think in general the idea of Sandman.
Let's talk a little bit about the high voltage reward. The first Ghost Rider, he is a 2/5 with an on reveal ability that discards the lowest power card in your hand and subtracts that card's power from him. Sorry, I got a little bit confused there because I realized the first thought everyone had with this card was like, I'm going to discard Hobgoblin and it's going to be 13 power. And that doesn't work, and it's kind of confusing, and that is a weird thing. But when I think about, like, it's interesting that you went straight to this is the new apocalypse with Khonshu, because I went straight to how can I use Khonshu to add a smidge of Hella to all of my decks. I want to take Khonshu, and I want to take this card, and I want to take Gore, and I want to play Khonshu on the final turn of my otherwise normal deck, and then just like, it's a 6/5, and then a Gore. That's what I'm playing. Like, that's my
Okay,
deck.
the crazy thing is, right, like I know what you're talking about, and I'm trying not to like admit that it could be a thing, because if it could be a thing, they're gonna call it the Konshu engine, and I think it's gonna be really strong. Like if it actually works, it's gonna be really strong. Like, can you imagine like the Konshu splash? Like you just
Yeah,
play
like that's
you
yeah.
just play like one big guy, one Konshu, one
Yeah.
discard, and then you just go 6/8 times 2, and then the 6/8 that you spawn is like a gore, so there's additional effect. So like it's probably gonna be like a 620 something on the
Yeah,
final turn. Like
I would take a
the
6/5
idea
gore.
is scary as hell, because
Yeah.
if it works, it's insane. 3-card splash engine that goes into any deck that has insane power output, Hela-esque output on the final turn. It's a scary thought, because if it works, I think KM's gonna like destroy the meta. But like,
Well, like there's
you know.
I don't think it'll be that bad, right? Because like
I
this
think it
is
will be that bad.
it's
Because
how much
it's
better
so
is it
consistent.
than just playing a gore? Like, you're introducing a fairly bad card in the form of First Ghost Rider into your deck in order to facilitate maybe an additional 10 power onto your gore.
No, but it always discards the lowest power card, so
It'll always hit gore.
discards the
Yes,
gore.
yes.
Right? It always hits gore. And like, okay, obviously this is if you can play this on turn 2, it's perfect, right? It's like your curve. But I feel like with the power output that you get from like discarding gore and then playing Khonshu, it feels like even if you like don't play this on turn 2 and wait to see if you draw the gore, I think it's actually fine. That's how powerful I think this could be.
I have some wondering about this card where it's just like, not everyone has finished High Voltage yet, so there's not really like been a lot of brewing with it, but I wasn't really planning on brewing with this card until Khonshu came out anyway. And so this is a card where it's like, in a world where like the Khonshu gore thing works, it is going to be in large part because of this card, I think. So if you're wondering if you should finish High Voltage, probably.
Yeah, I mean, a small part of me, a deep, dark, evil side of me wants this to work, because I like busted engines. I always feel like if you can splash busted engines into every damn mid-range tempo deck, right, it feels really good. But like it's also very scary, because if every deck can splash this, then like you get a very like one-dimensional meta, and who draws Konshu and who discards it, who wins, that kind of thing. So
yeah, and then I go back to playing a full ongoing deck, so the gore is tiny, and it's just like, yeah,
no, you
we're
go back
back
play
on
Tribunal, because it just simplified win everything, right? But no, it's been
No.
a while since we've seen Tribunal, by the way. Weird segue, but like it just died and never got a chance to respawn. What happened?
So Tribunal originally sprung up as a reaction to the previous Hela meta we had.
Correct.
This time around, people realized that instead of doing Tribunal, which sucks and gets blown out by a lot of stuff,
Yeah, it's horrible, yes.
they could just beat Hela with Mr. Negative.
Which is also kind of horrible.
It
though,
is
because
also
Mobius is
kind of
meta.
horrible, but it's a lot less horrible because you know the card that blows Mr. Negative out is Mobius, and nobody sane can put Mobius in their deck in a Hela meta. Because like imagine playing a 3/3 against Hela and they just like point and laugh and like it's the most embarrassing thing in the world.
Right. Like we just talked about mid-range scream, mid-range like priority meta. Mobius is like the number one not get priority on turn 3 card. Like
he's
so
still
weak,
around now. Like he's good now, but only because he makes Iron Patriot comfy. Like I can't tell you what a load off it is to not have to think about some bullshit Iron Patriot card getting dropped on my head on the final turn of the game. I also think
Mobius is such a weird card. It's really just one of those things whereby like it doesn't actually like add points. It's just like because everyone's playing Iron Patriot, so you kind of a bit priced in to be involved with playing Mobius. It's really not a lot of points, but just to counter Iron Patriot, I guess it makes sense.
I've got a second theory, and I realize we're just like burning time at this point, but I do have a theory. People should cope stay against an unknown Iron Patriot card way more.
On average, is it supposed to be not? I mean, if both of you are getting Iron Patriots, it's like it's just like even, right? But like,
well, I mean, like even if they got an Iron Patriot, and it's not like they like gave you any indication that it was like a super busted Iron Patriot. It's not like they skipped turn 5 and they're dropping the Infinite on you for 2 energy. Like, I feel like a lot of the time you're just supposed to be like the card they got. It's probably like a 4/5, and I can beat a 0/5. You know. Like it's like I think there's a reasonable amount of the time where you're just supposed to be like, I'm just gonna play as if they got like a 4/7 and it costs 0 and I can beat a 4/7. And then you get blown out when they get like a gore or whatever, but like there is just like I feel like people retreat in fear of the potential there. And I'm not sure that's a cube positive play. Like, I'm not saying you should always stay against Iron Patriot stuff. There's plenty of context here. But I think people might be a little bit over retreating the guy.
Yeah, I think last bit I want to add to this because I think it's very important because your point is like super relevant. The whole like over retreating to Iron Patriot thing. I think you also need to see what deck your opponent is playing, right? Like, because doesn't mean they win. Because I can see this happening every single time. Opponent wins Iron Patriot lane, snaps, and then just like, okay, bye. But like the thing is, you also need to see what is their deck's natural point output. If it's not like that much plus Iron Patriot free card, right? Maybe you can stay because maybe your burst potential is still more. You know, even if they high roll the Iron Patriot card. So I think it's very contextual, like you said. But yeah, I think just a good thing to think about.
I agree it's contextual, and it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like maybe people are like retreating 10% too much against the card, is sort of my take.
I can get it, yeah.
It's not like a massive amount, but I think it's notable. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Lamby Series, and he's about to take us out.
All right, thank you for being here, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.